have read. Funny.
All right, 9 o'clock.
She said, wait a minute.
Oh.
Are we good now?
These are the recording.
Oh, and my mic, you turned it on for me. I could have been over here telling bad jokes or something. I mean, okay. Got enough Dayquil in me to float, so we go. Okay, let's call this in order. It's a Butte Local Agency Formation Commission. Today is May 8th, 2025. Call a roll. Let's skip the flag salute today.
Commissioner Bolin,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Kimmelshoe,
Here.
Chair Connolly,
Here.
Commissioner McGreehan,
Here.
Commissioner Duncan, Commissioner Betts,
Here.
alternate Commissioner Rust,
Here.
alternate Commissioner Bradley,
Here.
alternate Commissioner Ritter, alternate Commissioner Shepherd. Thank you.
Okay, first up on the consent agenda is approval of the minutes of April 3rd. Do we have any errors or admissions on those?
Are you looking at me?
Yeah, because you're really good at it, I mean,
No, there's no errors or omissions. So
misspell words or anything?
I move that we approve the consent agenda item.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Acceptance, on the consent agenda, we accepted the independent auditor's report. Next up, notice public meeting, hearings, Richville Sanitary District.
Okay. Morning, Commissioners. This is a request to annex approximately 35.59 acres into the Richville Sanitary District. The parcels are comprised of the Richville Airport and a neighboring residential parcel. In order to accommodate the annexation, we will have to amend the sphere of the district to include those two parcels. The result of the annexation would allow these parcels to connect to the sanitary district for wastewater disposal, taking them off of their on-site septic systems. So today I'm asking for you to adopt resolution 062425, which would amend the sphere of the district, and then subsequently adopt resolution 072425, which would approve the annexation. So overall, staff is recommending approval of this project. It would reduce reliance of on-site septic systems and the environmental risks that come along with that. It would support ongoing ag supporting operations in that the Richville Airport basically supports crop dusting activities out in the Richville area. And it would add additional customer revenue to the Richville Sanitary District, which does have sufficient capacity to serve the project site. So again, today I'm asking you to adopt separately those two resolutions, finding the project exempt from CEQA, find that it's consistent with LAFCo and state policies, and waive protest provisions pursuant to Government Code 56662. I'm happy to answer any questions, and there is a representative from the project if you have any questions.
Question or comments by board members?
I have just a few comments. With regards to the actions that you're recommending, under action 1B, you're waiving the conducting authority precedence for the SOI. I don't know if that's appropriate for the sphere of
I agree.
influence.
I agree.
So we'll remove that.
Yes.
So action 1, item paragraph B will not be a part of our action. And then under action 2C, you've put a condition there. That's a condition of the project. Did you put this here just to make sure that everyone's aware?
Yes. So
Unusual for that to be in a motion. but
Yeah,
I'm fine with it.
in the request for comments period that we do, I did receive communication from representative from Drainage District 100 who had concerns that they have existing infrastructure in front of these parcels. And so I did ask if they would be okay with a condition of approval that the two districts work together when it comes to installing the infrastructure. They both agreed that that was fine, and that that. I don't have any doubts that the two districts will come to some agreement on the alignment of those facilities.
So making that item C as a part of the action, that you're just reinforcing that. You're just
Yes,
bringing that out and putting it in there.
that it's a conditional
Good.
approval.
No, I like that. Very good report, very thorough.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Public comment? Close public comment? Wishes of the board.
Move approval.
I'll ask that first you move to approve resolution 06-2425.
There's two motions we need.
Yeah,
right?
we'll first need to
Okay.
adopt the resolution to amend the sphere. They can't be done in the same action. So we'll first amend the sphere and then you'll adopt the resolution for the annexation.
Okay, I have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now entertain a motion on a second.
I move that we adopt resolution 07-2425.
Yes.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Oh, it's all roll call. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Commissioner Boland,
Aye.
We're all here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kimmelshoe,
Aye.
Chair Connolly,
Indicate.
Aye.
Who voted which way.
Commissioner McGreehan,
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan. Yes. Commissioner Betts.
Aye.
Thank you.
On both of them?
Yeah.
Was it a resolution here?
Yeah.
That's not, okay, yes. Do we have a roll call?
Yes.
Commissioner Boland,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kimmelshoe,
Aye.
Chair Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner McGreehan,
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan. Commissioner Betts.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
3.2, review and consideration of final budget for fiscal year 25-26.
Morning, Commissioners. This is a carryover item from your meeting on April 3rd where you, am I on, right? Okay. Where you originally adopted the tentative budget. And so that's a 30-day period for which we have to come back and adopt the final budget. And that's what today's meeting is. So there's nothing new that add to what you already took action on April 3rd. I'll just reiterate that the budget is basically flat and there is no agency increases included this year again in the budget. So I'm just looking for your approval of the final budget.
Any questions or comments by board members? Public comment on this matter? Close public comment. Wishes of the board.
Move approval?
No second.
This is a resolution as well.
Commissioner Boland,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Kimmelshoe,
Aye.
Chair Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner McGreehan, Commissioner Duncan. Yes. Commissioner Betts.
Aye.
Thank you.
I've been doing it wrong for 20 years. Thank you, Scott. I mean, I'm gonna go re-vote at the county on all the resolutions.
On its face has to show the individual vote, each person. That, I believe, requirement that be rolled.
Okay. Wow, Butte County's probably broke.
Mm-hmm.
All those resolutions.
Yeah.
That's called sarcasm. I'm sorry. At this time, there's nothing really to move from the consent agenda, but we're gonna go on to overview of LAFCo membership. We're gonna receive this and provide any direction.
Commissioners, I've shared with you a little bit about what some of the troubles LAFCo has gone through the last few months. And the last meeting, I had indicated to Commissioner McGreehan that I would come back and give you a full lowdown on how LAFCo works so that everybody would understand the broad picture. And since you like Shannon's slides so much, I thought I'd make mine longer. So I'm going to start off with just the slides are going to, I'm just going to run through this and just stop me if you have any questions. Happy to answer them. So this is obviously about the California Local Agency Formation Commission Association, or LAFCo. That is our industry association, if you will, similar to CSAC, CSDA, League, and so forth. So what is LAFCo's general mission? And you can read it on the screen too, but essentially it's what LAFCo's mission is: to promote the efficient and sustainable government services based on community values. And which we accomplished through alignment with our core values of dependability, efficiency, honesty, and transparency. So this is out of the mission statement for LAFCo, but I think the really important words that matter here is community, local community values. You've all said this, everybody says it, is we want to maintain local control on land use decisions. And play I can't do that from this, I don't think. Can you play that? Doesn't come on when you scroll over it. Click on it. Well, I'm sorry to say that. Well, anyhow, this was a video that is actually on the LAFCo website. Now, it worked this morning for some reason. Now it's not working. It's just a short little 10-minute video that tells different people at different events and how they express their desire for LAFCO and what it does for them. So I'm sorry that that doesn't work. So what are we? What is LAFCO? It's a nonprofit corporation. We're registered with the state of California. It's charity registered. We have attorney general registries. You can see all these things. What's really important is we're a private foundation or trust, and we're not subject to the Brown Act. So essentially, that's us in a nutshell, which is same as almost every other organization similar to ours around the state. Some background on LAFCO. As you know, commission was brought into legal existence in 1963 by state law. It took the LAFCOs in the 58 states a few years before they could put together some sort of a overarching organization. So that really began in 68. We approved some bylaws in 69, and the formation was approved in 71. I can almost say that in 1971, it was 1 year prior to Carl Evans actually coming onto this commission. So just a little for you folks who've been around for a while. So how do we work at LAFCO? So I know a lot of you have been to other events sponsored by other organizations around the state that are far larger than ours. So there's going to be a theme here about comparisons, but our foundation has always been basically volunteers. And we added legal counsel legally in 2005. That was through the benefit of San Bernardino allowing us to use their counsel. We didn't have a first paid executive director until 1998, which is 5 years after I started doing this. So it was all done by volunteers. So it was kind of a loose confederation, if you will. We opened our first offices in 2005, and that's where we started becoming a more concrete organization. Membership right now is 57 LAFCOs. We lost one. Tulare LAFCO is not a member for various reasons, which we can get into later. But we have associate members and at different levels. So those are basically the consultants who join the organization and attend workshops and conferences, and then basically try to sell us their wares, if you will. But they also provide a lot of input through the process and help us on the back end in developing strategies, technologies, and so forth. So again, very common practice. LAFCO is broken into 4 regions for purposes of governance around the state. And you can see from the map that we're the North region. There's 18 counties up there. It's a somewhat disparate group. It's tough to get all 18 together. Getting folks up from the North Coast down to Sacramento just for a meeting means a 5-hour drive for those folks, and not an easy flight from Arcata either. So our region is always been difficult to coordinate and wrangle folks up just because of the distances involved. But that's our region, and those are your regional board members. So you can see on this is an organizational chart. So yeah, the board of directors at the top. Executive officer, the executive director, and legal counsel. Those are the 3 fundamental positions that the organization maintains. All of those folks are voting members of the board, with the exception that the executive director, legal counsel, and executive officer are ex officio members of the board. In any event, underneath that is the deputy executive officers, the regional officers, one from each region that I showed you on that map. A legislative committee that works through legislative matters. And then we have an administrator who's sort of like the office manager for the organization and maintains the websites and so forth. It's an odd slide. So there you go. Once again, the LAFCO Board of Directors is 16-member board elected annually by the membership. So that's 8 each year, 1 each from each category. And you can see there below 4 from each region. So the Central, Coastal, Northern, and Southern each have 4 directors. And each of those directors, one of them comes from a special district, public, county, or city. So it kind of just generally built to reflect what LAFCOs look like around the state. Historically, there were two part-time employees. You can see an executive director, which was part-time, and an executive assistant that was part-time. This is in transition now, and I'll get to that, but this was our historical practice. As I mentioned already, the three primary contractors that we use, in other words, people that we pay outside of our volunteers, are legal counsel, which is a firm in Southern California at present. We do have a CPA that does all of our bookkeeping, and we have a paid lobbyist to address issues on the Hill or in Sacramento. And the volunteer staff are the regions, the committees, and all the special projects. So essentially, volunteers are tapped for like 80% of the effort that the agency puts forward. Volunteers, these are the various types of volunteer commitments you see on the screen. So the executive officer, when I say that, that's the Cal LAFCo executive officer. That's currently my position. Deputy executive officers, there's three. So between the executive officer and the three deputies, that's the four regional officers that represent all of the membership regions. From volunteers, we asked for a vice chair for the legislative committee, which basically runs and the meetings and prepares the agendas. We have a workshop host program committee for the conference and workshop. Those are things that people volunteer for. I'll get into that a little more. Cal LAFCo U which is Cal LAFCo University, which is an educational program. It started out in person, is now done via webinars. It's fairly well done. We try to do 4 of those a year on various topics that are suggested by the membership. And then those are prepared and set up as webinars. Some of those turn into white papers that are also prepared by Cal LAFCo and its staff. We have a lot of special projects that come by where we work with other agencies, like with California Farm Bureau. We've worked with them on a whole series of white papers on agricultural protection, as an example. We've worked with the Justice League for Accountability on various things about ducks, disadvantaged unincorporated communities, excuse me. And we support, staff supports the awards committee, who obviously gives out the awards every year that the organization deems appropriate. We do have an operational manual that was produced in 2007. This is our policies and procedures. This, just like everybody else, other agency, it just guides what we do, talks about how we do things, the policies that are included. Changes to the policies can be handled by the board itself. We also have bylaws. Those bylaw changes are part of our corporation paper. So those are things that require full membership changes if they want to make any amendments. So in the policies, all the stuff you'd normally expect to see: organizational structure, fiscal management, board operations, and so forth. Actually, it's how we operate. A lot of words on the screen right here. I appreciate that. But these are the strategic areas that Cal LAFCo basically gets involved in. And these are very similar. If you were to see this from CSDA or CSAC or the league, they would have similar things. So number one, all these organizations are about educational resource to their members. And that's primarily what Cal LAFCo was intended to do initially. They also provide trainings and strategies to build stronger relationships between LAFCos, which is about member development and communication. And then lastly, on that screen, you'll see it serves as a resource for legislative matters and policy advocate for issues that are statewide important. So we weigh into a lot of things. Most of it tends to be legislative matters, bills that are proposed, but there are many other periodic things come up around the state that require folks, agencies to weigh in on, and we tend to participate in most of those discussions as well. Legislative priorities. So this is a very important part of what Cal LAFCo does, is we monitor the, every year there's some 2,000 potential bills that come through the legislature, and we have to figure out, of those, which ones matter to us, and of those, which ones do we want to actually engage in. So we come down to, usually every year, there's probably 10 to 12 bills that we feel have an impact on either LAFCo directly or indirectly through some other related land use or governance position. So the second point on here is one that's really important, and Bill could talk about this all day. It's loss of local control and land use. So what most legislation comes through Cal LAFCo, so a lot of it is helpful, and it's especially the stuff that we and our members generate, but there's also a lot of legislation generated outside the LAFCO world. And usually it's coming from people who have looked at the LAFCO process, decided for one reason or another they may not like it, they don't think they're going to get through it effectively, or it's political, and they go seek a workaround in the state legislature. So You've seen this, I've talked about it before in certain bills. 56133 is something I've talked about, service extensions. Um, what Cal LAFCO has always done and will always do, and we have always supported, is at all costs, decisions about land use and boundaries and services need to be done by local folks elected in this county for our people. And we chafe at bills that come through the state legislature that remove local control. So we've had a lot of these and we've won a lot and we've lost a few. Most of the ones we've lost, I'll just be honest, were fights with the state itself, not necessarily how we go through a process, but for instance, consolidating water systems. You all might recall years ago, the state came in and said there's a problem. DWR was then put in charge along with State Water Board, and they came up with a process by which they can force a consolidation. Now that's a process that would normally go through LAFCO. And we would probably come to many of the same outcomes as they did, except for it would be locally discussed and locally voted on. And here, the State Water Board just gets to come in and just tell them. So if they said they want to consolidate 3 districts in our county, they literally could just call me up and tell me, this is what we're going to do, and here's what you're going to do to support it. And it's all in the law. It's not much we can do about it at this point, except for try to get out in front of it if we get enough advance warning and come up with our own process. But again, I just want to emphasize, the purpose of Cal LAFCO is to empower local LAFCOs and local decision making, not to just see this go up to the state at higher and higher levels. Ag land, open space protections, obviously one of our core beliefs. Water availability, super huge in the state. Certainly within the last couple of decades, it has risen way up to the top of importance. Now, thankfully, with GSAs in being created, some of that burden now falls on them, less on us to make some of those kind of decisions. But still, water availability is huge, and you all sat through a couple of years of the Tuscan Water District formation, so you know exactly how everybody feels about that issue. It's very personal and emotional. Viability of local services is another one of our high priorities. And then issues that we weighed into over the years for various reasons: housing, transportation, flood control, adequate municipal services, and one that I should have put on the list but did not, because it's really much more recent, is hazard mitigation planning. And you saw from Shannon's last MSR that she did that we talked extensively about wildfire and so forth, and how that affected those CSDs up in the foothill communities. We are now finding ourselves, and other LAFCOs are finding themselves, in a far more important position of weighing into that hazardous condition situation and looking at agencies and how well prepared they are for it. So we've done a really good job here. We've participated in the local hazard mitigation planning process, encouraged all of our local agencies to participate, offer some comments, but that is another really important issue that has really just come to light, say, in the last 5 years as being super important. Revenue, how does this whole thing run? Well, you can see the screen there in front of you. This is 2024 revenue for the agency. You see that it broke it up into 3 basic categories: dues, events, and sort of miscellaneous revenue. So obviously we get most of our, as most associations do, our revenue comes through membership contributions, which is established based on a rubric of population size for each county. So the very largest counties, LA, Orange, San Diego, they're paying in the $13,000-$14,000 a year range for dues, whereas Mr. Betts's formal haunt over in Glen, I think, was paying like $1,100 or something annually. Yeah. So you can see there's a fairly big disparity, but nonetheless, those are also big disparities in population and revenues within those counties. This has always been a point of contention. I know Bill sat through some just torturous 2 years of this dues stuff. But really it was, the small one saying we just can't afford it, and the big one saying, why are we paying so much and, carrying the freight for everybody else? It was a fight. We figured out a formula, finally got it adopted. It's about as fair as it's probably going to be honest with you.
Question. What constitutes events for fundraising purposes?
So we get other revenues in for things like publications we put out where we might sell them, or dues that might come in for Cal LAFCO University. We get money from associate members that is separate from that category. It's not very much money, as you can see from the pie chart there.
But are you asking about the
percentage?
Oh.
37% for the events is the source of revenue. That's why.
workshop and the staff conference? 2 workshops a year.
Okay. Thank you.
How long is that dues structure in place? Does it have a sunset?
It gets adopted and revisited every 3 years
Okay.
for adjustments. So it doesn't sunset.
It was ugly.
It will go up most likely.
And that's always a very interesting discussion.
It is. And I'm going to, so just real quickly, just to go, whoops, which way did I go? So we have expenses here and it breaks it down. I'm going to come back to that, Mr. Kimmelshoe. So we're about $560,000 is the annual budget. So you can see that Cal LAFCo actually has a smaller budget than Butte LAFCO, has a smaller budget than most of the LAFCOs for that matter. But having said that, this is in fact how the money gets spent. You can see by and large, it goes to supporting our large events, the annual conference, the annual workshop, and then the blue category, which is personnel costs, which is our executive director, office manager, and the stipends that are provided.
If there's lobbying that needs to be done in the legislature, whether it be testifying before a committee or meeting with legislators, is that done by the executive director? Is that who does the lobbying?
So it's a combination of folks, and I'm going to give you. Bill's looking at me, and I know this is difficult because last 6 months. I don't want to tell you what's been happening because that's not reflective of the longer 30-year history. But generally, what would happen is the legislative committee decides what's important. So there's a larger group of about 20 individuals who decide what's important, the bills we want to promote or oppose. Once we come up with a position, the board adopts that position, and then the executive director, we do have a lobbyist. I'll get to that on a future screen. That's a more recent development. And we rely on people like Director Connolly, who would come forward with wearing his supervisor hat to go meet with a particular legislator in Sacramento, and I might go with him. So generally what happens is it's the executive director of the Cal LAFCO organization, sometimes me in the position of executive or of the executive officer of Cal LAFCO, not Butte. And then we will harvest other volunteers from the other 58 counties, whoever we feel is most appropriate to make a pitch, if you will, to a particular legislator.
Okay.
That's not so much the way CSD and League and such work, but again, staffing is just well beyond. They have hundreds of folks. We have 2. Member services, what do we get for this? Well, the big things are right here is educational. The annual conference, which is for all commissioners and staff, but it's really geared towards commissioners. It's a place where other commissioners can talk to one another, see how other LAFCOs work, and get good ideas that maybe they didn't hear about. The next one coming up is in San Diego in the fall. Usually the annual conference is in the fall, and the staff workshop you see is in the spring. We just had it last week in Temecula. That's a workshop that does not involve commissioners, so there's no electeds at that meeting. It's really intended to just roll up your sleeves and get into more of the tools, the bread and butter, what we do behind the scenes. And that's not something necessarily commissioners are interested in or want to get involved in. And it also makes it less political to have those conversations amongst staff. So those are the 2 big events every year, and they draw hundreds of folks to those events. We have, as I already mentioned, Cal LAFCO University courses, which are online webinars now. We do 4 a year on different subjects. There's a whole library of them as well. And we produce research papers, again, based on need. We did one about islands, for instance. I was tapped to help on that research paper because we went through that process with the city of Chico so effectively. Some more member service items. You see, we have a website. It's not in the best shape right now for reasons that I will get into, but it was a really good resource. We had all of those white papers, university classes, tons of research information up there. Through some reconfiguration that was done, a lot of that was removed. It will be returned, and I think the website will go back to its historical visits, which was, as you can see, in 2020 was close to 60,000 people. Not huge, but for LAFCO world and how few people know about LAFCO, that's a fairly impressive number. We do have listservs. This is probably, and Shannon would agree, I suspect that this is probably the most useful thing. The listserv is basically, and you can see them, there's one for executive officers, clerks, council, analysts, and then just some for the regions. The one that's most important to us is the EO listserv. That's basically, we get online and we send out a question, and there's 58 people, actually more, who are on that listserv of our peers who can then fire back all kinds of good ideas to us. I don't think there's been a week that has gone by in my tenure here that I have not gotten on that listserv. That's how valuable it is. And it's a safe place to put questions up. So, you know, you don't have to be embarrassed to say, hey, has anybody ever done this? I've never seen this. And I will say that to the benefit of this commission supporting your staff is Shannon and I get a lot of questions. We tend to do more than most. So we get a lot of questions of how did you do this? How'd you do this? The fire contract with the city of Chico or Oroville between Caltrans. That was a first. People would get a list of anybody done this? Shannon got on there and said, yeah, here's a staff report and here's all the background notes. And so that's the kind of stuff that happens on the listserv that's just super valuable and irreplaceable. We put out an annual magazine called The Sphere. It's usually just full of stories about LAFCo and related LAFCO things. As an annual report that gets published every year by the board, quarterly reports, membership publications. We get a directory that has everybody's name, numbers, all the commissioners, all that kind of stuff in it. And they ultimately coordinate the printing of the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act, and then they distribute that to each of our members and provide it on the website as well for downloading. Legislative resources. This kind of comes back to your question, Mr. Kimmelshoe. So when it comes to the way we deal with this, it's difficult because we're a nonprofit. We have extremely tight limitations, legally imposed legal limitations. Bill's heard this speech a million times over. It's absolutely true, but it's also a crutch. We are limited because of our status as a nonprofit organization to only spending 20% of our budget towards lobbying. Now, we do have a lobbyist on board now. This is in the last couple of years. Jean Hurst is her name. Hurst Espinoza Brooks is the firm, big firm in Sacramento. She's very knowledgeable in LAFCO. But we can't spend any more than 20% of our total budget. So, you know, the total budget's 600,000. So we're talking about, you know, what's that, $200,000 or $100,000?
That includes the executive officer's time.
Right.
Wow.
So it's really tough. So what we
Tough.
have to do is rely on volunteers. And this is why I wanted to come back to it is if our executive director goes down to lobby, that person gets over that 20%, that's a problem. But if Bill goes down just as a supervisor, as a commissioner, that does not count towards it. We're not paying him to do that for us or any of the other board members all around the state who can go do all that. We need to rely heavily on people to go help us lobby who don't get us over that 20% budget thing. And it's really difficult. That's why we are we're an impactful organization, but nowhere near the level of impact CSAC, the league, or CSDA. We can't compete. We just simply cannot compete with the number of people and the amount of resources they have. So we have to choose our battles very wisely.
Steve, is that budget limitation an actual law?
It's built into Bill probably remembers.
It's a nonprofit.
It's part of the
status.
nonprofit setup.
We'd have to change our status.
So
as
it's
a
part of the
nonprofit.
original filing?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Be a 501c3, you probably can only do
We're
so
tax
much.
exempt.
Yeah.
But once you start spending money over the 10%, that messes with that protection, if you would.
Right.
And our tax issues become different.
Okay.
That's that simple, really. And we've always been bound by this. This is not something new. We look at proposed and reviewed LAFCo legislation. As I already indicated, we testify on the Hill. I don't know why I keep calling it the Hill. In
At
Sacramento.
the Capitol, yeah.
More like the dungeon.
And yeah, you're on the Hill here.
That's right.
But we go down and testify. Many times I've gone down and, you get your 3 minutes of fame to sit in front of the committee and tell them why you think your bill is good. If we can only be as good as you. Serve on work groups. We get a lot of calls to serve on work groups. That could be coming from CSAC, the league. Their problem. They're like, well, this works with LAFCO. Let's get some LAFCO folks on it and join our work group. The protest provisions law that we got pushed through the legislature a couple of years back, I've shared it with you. But basically, it lowered the bar and allowed LAFCO to initiate. Change the protest provision. Shannon, I'm going to ask her to do. She gave a very, very excellent, overly thorough, probably, slideshow at this last conference, and it was all about protest provisions. It's exceptional. Like a A to Z guide on how to go about it. So I hope she'll do that for you, just for education purposes. Coordinate with our peer associations. So that's all those other groups. public resources. Cal LAFCo gets, 15 calls per day, emails. Comes and goes, obviously, but when there's a lot of legislation that's posed that has our name somewhere in it, we get a lot more calls. Or if somebody proposes something in a county that's a huge issue, we might get a lot more Cal LAFCO. And I keep saying we in this, but I'm referring to my position as Cal LAFCO. But I get a lot of calls from around the state just saying, hey, graphic of our member services, or so it's a little dated, but you can just see some basic numbers there. I'm not going to go through this, but these numbers are going to consistently change over time and will certainly improve as we do. I can make this available to everybody. I'm sure y'all don't want to sit there and stare at that. What is our participation? Our annual dues, this came up earlier, is $47.50. So as you heard from Mr. Betts and his time over in Glenn County, they were, what did you say, 1,300, Steve? So 1,300 is as low as it gets. We are in what we call a suburban county versus a rural county versus an urban county. And those are all set up by population. So we're in that category. We pay $47.50 a year for all the things that I just described to you. Regional officers, I talked about how the organization has regional officers. That's 4 of us. One of us is the executive officer. That happens to be me. For that benefit, Cal LAFCo gives out stipends because those people do a lot of the heavy lifting to get things done. So as you can see, for the last however many years, Beat LAFCO has been receiving $6,000 a year from Cal LAFCO to compensate Beat LAFCO's budget for my time. The other regional officers, they get $3,000. That's all going to be revisited. So in our case, this covers our dues. But I also tell you that $6,000 a year by no means covers our time we spend doing Cal LAFCO work. And that's something nobody can get around. I'm sure Al, for instance, with the California Recreation and Park District, your staff spends more time than you're ever going to get compensated for that time. But you get benefits from being involved. That's a philosophical debate, I suppose. Commissioners have served as directors. So in our case, Larry Duncan was on the commission or was on the Cal LAFCO board for a while, representing representing us through Paradise Irrigation District. And then more recently, and for quite a long time, Mr. Connolly has served as the county member from the North Region on the Cal LAFCO board. That's been our I ask you every year, and we have some vacancies, and I'm probably going to ask somebody to help me out. As you can see here, the vacancies this fall will be for the county rep and a district rep. So I don't know what district rep might be interested in serving on the Cal LAFCO board, maybe from a recreation and park district who maybe already has experience on a statewide board. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. Maybe that person might be interested. I've served as the regional officer for 14 years. That is not normal by any means. These regional positions are supposed to be up for reconsideration every couple of years. It comes down to who's willing to do it. The North Region, as I already explained, fairly diverse. People can't travel to Sacramento very easily. And I guess they felt like I was talking enough for all of them, so they let me keep doing it. I will stop doing that here on June 30th. Coming up. Staff, legal counsel, directors all serve on the Ledge Committee. Bill has been on the Ledge Committee. I'm on the Ledge Committee. Mr. Brown's been on the Ledge Committee. Shannon gets onto the Ledge Committee. So these are great opportunities to work through bills. Steve's probably been on 1 or 2 at some point in his career. Second item down there, next item, EO, DO, legal counsel, clerk, all positions in Beat LAFCO. We have all presented at one point or another at workshops and conferences. In fact, Shannon will be managing the annual conference program in San Diego this fall. She may be tapping some of you for some expertise or being on a panel to speak. So it's a big, I'm going to go on a little more. It's a big deal. And I'm so happy she take this on because it's really like herding cats. And she's been through enough of them now that she knows exactly what she's getting into, I believe. And a big change here will also be that, as I said earlier, I'll be leaving the executive officer role for Cal LAFCo on June 30th. And I have arranged with my fellow regional officers that we extended that request to Shannon to replace me. She'll be a regional officer, not the executive officer, but she'll be one of the 4. And this is extraordinarily important because later, as I get to some other changes in Cal LAFCo, the regional officer to have one of those roles is hugely valuable to help we get information and our influence back to the organization.
Let me ask a quick question. In the North region, obviously, it sounds like the Butte LAFCo is by far the most active LAFCO. What other counties LAFCOs are active? Is Shasta County active at all? I mean, I'm thinking it's one of the bigger counties in the North region.
So I would say the active counties, generally speaking, are Butte, Nevada.
Nevada County, okay.
Scott also is legal counsel for Nevada LAFCO. They're EOSR. She's getting ready to retire, but those 2 are the big players. We have recently had interest from Shasta because they contracted with a different firm to provide their EO services, and that firm has stepped up. Shasta County itself has really not been involved for 2 decades. For whatever reason, they had a really good EO for a long time. Julie Howard was her name. She was actually chief administrator there. She retired, and then like everything, they just chopped in. The most difficult part is they're rural. They don't have a lot of action. Sometimes they don't know what they don't know. You get to see things here as a commission and make decisions on things because Shannon and I or Scott, we harvest this stuff and bring it to you because we know it's important. These smaller LAFCOs, they don't really do that. They wait and react.
And also, I'm sure we have many more issues than some of the more rural counties. Pressure on ag land, annexations, those kind of things.
And it goes without saying, practically, you probably already all know this. Very conservative counties, and they're very conservative budgeting counties. And you'll go to some of those boards and say, put up this kind of money to run this local agency formation commission. Enough government already. We don't really want.
Got it.
It's a population issue. I think it's just that simple.
Okay.
So moving on. Back. So I can say in all the years, this is just on one. Cal LAFCO gives out statewide awards. That process is every year, all the LAFCOs, anybody really can nominate anybody for a LAFCO award. There's about 6 categories of awards. It goes to an awards committee, which is made up of directors and the regional officers, and then they look through the merits of each of the award submittals, and then they make those recommendations, and then those are awarded at the end. Been all over the board, and I say this only because this is really a testimony to this commission. It doesn't really matter who got the award. I have to say, the wastewater MSR that Mr. Betts wrote in 2010 was the beginning of everything when we started talking about Oroville sewer. That was an exception. Of course, Carl Evans was around forever, and Brown and I, and then there's Project of the Year, the CSA MSR. Once again, that was Mr. Betts. I'm giving him his kudos because he didn't get enough of this when he was staff member. But that CSA MSR, there's not another one like it in the state. It is by far, and we've heard this from other committees, has done CSAs to the extent that we looked at them. And I like to think the county is benefiting from that opportunity because now there's this giant book on everybody's desk. Anyhow, so this commission has supported Cal LAFCO. You have supported your staff being on Cal LAFCO. And as a result, we've done some really good work. The commission's done really good work. We were the most outstanding effective commission in 2015. Bill just got the outstanding commissioner award last year. So the whole has done its part as a member, more than its part, as Scott just said. Because as you all know, in volunteer organizations of all types and at all levels, 10% of the people do 90% of the work. And they're the ones who are most interested, and they have the most to gain because they're interested in the education. And as you all know, I'm a nerd for learning about all that stuff. So I didn't mind being on most of these things. I'm just super appreciative that you all have allowed us to do that as your staff. And I hope the benefit trickled back up to you guys. Current status. Bill's gonna have a really hard time not talking now, but um, in 2024, beginning of 24, I call it the Great Disruption. But the board started looking at modernization ideas. This was all fine and well, and there was a lot of talk about it. But what happened was they formed a small committee, and that small committee was made up of one person who had a particular agenda and three other directors, LAFCo directors who were serving on the LAFCo board, who had less than 2 years total experience in LAFCO at all. Through that process, they really just pushed through some very egregious things that and without member oversight, meaning like I was not actually involved in some of the discussions. They actually closed us out. We found out about this, so I'm making this as super simple as I can because it angers me, to be honest with you. But executive director made many missteps. The executive committee of the group made missteps. The board itself made missteps and committed a lot of big overreach. The single big worst thing that happened was they disbanded the legislative committee. That was sort of the guts of our staffing around the state. That's where we all sat around, rolled up our sleeves and talked about real detailed things. And you need to hear from practitioners when you do that. You need to hear from the people in the trenches. And this particular board, 4 people said, we don't want to know what they have to say. We think the legislative committee is too cumbersome, too this, too that. We want to make it more like CSAC, more like the league. Again, as I already told you, by making any comparisons whatsoever to those large organizations is absolutely ridiculous. These people have millions of dollars to spend and hundreds of staff just to do it. We have a $600,000 budget and 3 staff. So let's get real about what we can accomplish and who we should be competing with. So in the process of that, they disbanded the ledge committee. I did my best to discover as much as I could, and I brought this to light because I was the executive officer at the time for LAFCo. And at that point, I think I put it shortly as I blew it out of the water in terms of what was happening. And as soon as the membership started hearing about it, there was a revolt. So at that point, we went through a whole 6 months of poor communication from the board. They misrepresented things to the board. San Diego, San Bernardino, Los Angeles, and Orange, as you see listed up there. Those 4 counties all threatened to leave. San Bernardino has given us their final, they're going to leave. And LA, San Diego, and Orange are on the fence. They're probably going to leave, but we're making a lot of changes, so I don't want you to feel bad. This is going to get better. And then we also had a bunch of board resignations. Bill was one of them. Bill's for very good reason. I don't need to defend Bill because he put in hours and years of his time, and they just simply would not listen. And it wasn't just Bill, there were a few others. They would not listen to some of the seasoned older directors, and some of these newer directors that had been on there for just a couple of years thought they knew everything. It was frustrating, to say the least. So Bill, for staying as long as he did, gets a gold star. So having said that, everything kind of came to a head, and there was lots of several board meetings, stuff going on all around the state. We needed to do some triage immediately. So we did get the board to create an interim organizational team, transition team, which includes me as well, and our past executive director. Her name was Pamela Miller. Some of you might remember that name. She was excellent. Organization ran smoothly under her. They brought her back essentially as a contractor to help reset the ship, if you will. That includes things like changing operations of the board, website updates that we have to get back to where we were. Best practices just for board meetings. Our board meetings oftentimes just deteriorated into people talking over one another, got nowhere. I will say when Bill was chair, that happened a lot less.
The meetings were at least an hour shorter, every meeting.
Well, sometimes you hear about as much as you need to hear, and someone had to be, and it's usually the chair.
My favorite thing is you beat this horse to death. Let's put it in the barn, move on, man.
So as part of all this immediate actions, we also started an online cultural assessment. Had a retreat, developed a 6 to 9 month action plan, which takes us through the end of the year. We're going to recruit for a new interim executive director. We have a interim director now who happens to also be the executive officer of Sacramento LAFCo. Frankly, he was chosen because he's in Sacramento already. So it was easy for him to kind of do both, but he's burning his handle at both ends right now, and we need desperately to find a new person to step in and lead the rest of the transition. Again, when I talked about recent board resignations, hopefully we can get those replaced with some new folks with some fresh ideas. We're going to get re-engaged with the legislative update process, and there's something called capital track. Might be boring to all you. Todd, you might have seen it. It's because it's or the county members. Capital track is just it's a long list of every bill that's going through the legislature and their status and the votes. It's a comprehensive view. We used to update that and kind of import our LAFCo views into it. That sort of fell by the wayside as a process of some of these disruptions I discussed. So what are the big remedial actions moving forward? We're going to conduct a cultural assessment. That's an interesting feel-good word to me, but nonetheless, it is what it is. It's looking at yourself and saying what worked, what didn't work, and what do we really value, and where have we let those values slide by? It's important when you reset. Call it what you want. It's just a matter of getting your house back in order and determining what's valuable to you. So you can see the 4 things underneath it. Organizational leadership competencies. This is huge. And again, we have 16-member board, and it is impossible, as all 7 of you know, to come on to anything to do with LAFCo. And if you think you've done it for a year and you know it all, then also go play the lottery because you probably know it all. But we need to have a process in place where the board is vetted better so that we have experienced people on the board. Had a board made up of Bill Connolly's, we would not problems. I guarantee it. So establishing priorities, recruiting for a new permanent executive director, somebody who will lead us into the people, and begin to rebuild trust with the membership. That's really what was happening here. Was the membership stopped trusting the board, and the more that happened, the more the board got insulated, and the more insulated they got, the less they knew, and it just got worse. You can see that hamster wheel of problems. Also being conducted by Ms. Miller will be a comprehensive organizational structure assessment. And you can see all the things we're talking about there. We're gonna go from top to bottom, look at policies, procedures, bylaws. Qualifications for the board, huge. Should we have term limits on the board or not? Regional officers are now proposed to sit board as voting members. Practitioners always at the table. The conversation on policy. Restructuring our committees for more effectiveness, and then looking for any potential reforms and improvements that we just haven't thought about. So coming up here real quick is, I'm going to skip down to the second point, actually. Ms. Miller conducted a 3-hour focus group at the staff workshop in Temecula this past Friday. It was well attended. It was on Friday. Most times people tend to skip out earlier on Fridays, but this was so important that we had incredible attendance. And it was sort of a wide open bitch session, if you will, of people being felt, and it was really helpful. But the general takeaway from all the memberships that were there was the board just let us down, and we weren't diligent enough to watch over it. Part of this process is to get research and feedback, so that we can let this happen again and develop policies. I'm going to share with you policies at a later date because they're still being fleshed out, but nonetheless, this is where we're at. And the final thing is we're going to conduct a focus group in the 4 regions. So Ms. Miller is going to go to all 4 of the regions and hold a meeting and talk with just staff and commissioners in that region. I've sent out an email to all of you. Ours is going to be May 15th. It's going to be in Chico. County Mosquito Vector Control District volunteered their board meeting up at Otterson Drive there in Chico. For that meeting, so it'll be in Chico. It's 11 to 2. Commissioner McGrean has indicated he would like to go. Appreciate that, Al. Thank you. If any of you else want to go, just let me know. Shoot me an email. Very informal. This is not going to be you're an elected official put on the spot. This is everybody equal in a room talking about the problems and being honest. So if you think that's something you want to be involved in, I encourage it, and let me know. So one of the goals of this whole process for LAFCo, stuff you've seen a million times over on slides, enhancing communication. Everybody says that. It's getting it done is hard. Rebuilding trust, a better board, membership feedback process it's improved. What does LAFCo look like down the road as so many of us older folks are retiring out and there's a younger group of LAFCo executive officers coming up who have plenty of good ideas. And basically that's our goal. One key component of what we have to do coming up in LAFCo is hiring the executive director. I will say this because, well, I say things like this, but we made a bad choice. We just made a bad choice. Some of us knew it.
Yeah, we didn't vote for that.
But we made a bad choice. It took us 5 years, sadly, to figure out we made a bad choice. And it was so blatantly obvious at the end of the term. Having said that, water under the bridge. What we do know moving forward is we need a new executive director. And one of the things came out of the conference workshop thing that I just talked about Friday was no short. Somebody who can be around for a decade and work with us and learn everything there is to know about us. This person that we had hired prior, I think Bill and I will both say we had little expectation that even if she had wanted to stay, she probably wouldn't have. It was just a short time gig, and we knew that. But we want to get people, someone obviously who can forge relationships, legislate. Are important. You have to be comfortable going down to Capitol and rubbing elbows with everybody and sitting in meetings, lines and sitting in assembly committee meetings and all the stuff that has to happen. Collaboration, local government experience. You can see all the things you would, tend to look for in an EO practically, with the exception of sort of maybe the legislative advocacy standpoint. And again, comment on here. As this moves forward, we're probably this will be towards that end of that 6 to 9 months transitional rebuild. That person will be hired. And if all goes well and Ms. Costa accepts, then she will be a DEO as a regional officer, and that will put her at the table for the interviews for you by extension get to have a seat at the table. And so she would be able to share your views and towards hiring a new executive director. So $60,000 question for me was 6 months ago, and Bill is, what do we do? Do we leave? Go join the Southern California LAFCos? Do we see if this is going to work? Do we watch it explode? Well, the reality is, what I point here is LAFCO experienced a major upheaval. There's no question about it. We acknowledge that. But it is clear that LAFCO has provided Butte LAFCO, and I think its members for better part of its existence, minus the last 2 to 3 years. Decades of experiential educational legislative support. It's invaluable. And it's also very clear from the slides that Butte LAFCO is contributing greatly to Cal LAFCO. It made a difference. A lot of what you all have said to me over the years, what I said to them. So you had a little bit voice at the table. So as the indicator up there is I think at this point, I have hope. And I think we've invested so much, and I think it'll benefit this commission and Ms. Costa so much to stay invested in this. And the more invested, the more you're invested, the more we get out of this and the say you have. So I guess I'm here to tell you today that I think we should stay in. And but I also put this slide up here because Bill has done a lot of amazing things over the years in practical decisions. We want to build on that legacy. I'm going to continue till the end of my term to continue to push for all the things we've worked on. We do have, and I said this earlier, there's going to be 2 open seats available, district county seats available in October of this year for the northern region. So that gives an opportunity for 1 or 2 of you to join the board. And I think that's hugely valuable. So I hope somebody decides that's something they're willing to do. And to that extent, I will bend over backwards to help whoever wants. EO anticipate, already brought this up, joining the North Region as the deputy executive officer. I think that's huge. That's going to continue our involvement. Unlike some LAFCos that share a lot. Some EOs, believe it or not, didn't share a lot down. Jen and I talked about every issue of this endlessly. So I think she's ready to go day one to make a difference. And she knows the other people she'll be working with already because she's worked with them on the workshops. Again, I already said she's going to manage the program for the fall conference. That's burden. It's also a good opportunity because Jen and I just talked yesterday. She's got some new ideas that I think are going to be good to hear. And So at closing here, the Cal LAFCo membership, what we learned from the workshop, which was really heavily focused on some of the mistakes we've made over the last 6 months, was the board for what they've done to us over the last. But you look around the room, in that room of several hundred people, and those people all get along. It's sort of the same old thing everywhere, right? The lower down, the more simple you get, people tend to get along, and we all value each other. So really what this is about, it's not so much staying in Cal LAFCo or as much as it's about continually support your peer network. And I think Shannon does that already extensively. I've used it, and I think it's very, very valuable for us to stay in, pay our $47.50, get our stipend that goes somewhat offsets that membership, and have a seat at the table for all future discussions. That's all I have. This is just contact information for the organization, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I hope this gives you, and Al, you were the one who asked me more questions about it. I hope this was enough of an overview
Sure.
of what Cal LAFCo does and how important it is and how important we are to it as well. And are there questions for me that you have that I can help either take back to the Cal LAFCO process? You can come to the May 15th meeting, bring it yourself. So if any of you can be available, May 15th, you're close by.
I just checked my calendar. I'm
All
clear.
right. Please come. But again, tell
What
me,
time's that start?
11 o'clock,
Okay, and go most of the day?
Till 2.
11 to 2,
And it's at the
444 Otterson Drive. I'll send out another.
is that
email.
where BCAG meets?
Yeah, no, BCAG meets real close to there.
Okay,
They're just down the road a little further.
all right.
Just go to the end of the road.
What's the address again?
444 Otterson Drive.
Okay, thanks.
So.
I got a
Yes,
question.
sir.
So if those 3 or 4 big LAFCOs down south stop their membership in Cal LAFCO, what is that going to do to Cal LAFCO? Because they're providing a big portion of the budget.
So that's been the elephant in the room the entire time. They represent something like $40,000 to $50,000 of that $600,000 budget. So it's a fairly substantial chunk because they're the 3 largest LAFCOs in the state. So what we do know is this, the board has committed to saying to all the rest of the membership, your fees will not go up if these folks leave. We don't know what the plan is yet, but what they do know is we cannot, the rest of us, subsidize their loss. It's too much to ask. Having said that, we will also lose potentially their involvement in workshops and conferences. Now, they may stay and come to those just as members. Anybody can pay their registration fee and show up. Biggest loss will be, very well, Steve, from your years, is that those are also LAFCOs that do a lot of work. And those are the EOs that also provide.
Yeah, it's a brain trust. I mean, let me speak on this a little bit. Actually, one of the biggest mistakes Cal LAFCO did under the former directors, not listen to them. And they brought up some things that we soundly supported. We think that we should change a little bit of language so that people don't misinterpret it and provide services outside their district and declare their own emergency, for example. They believe that we can get along with the special districts and League of Cities, to the point that that's not a direction that most of the board was taking, the executive part of the board. So to me, they're the heart and soul, and they're the brain trust. What I'm trying to say, these are the very active, very intelligent EOs and boards that are a core of us. So for me, if you want to keep, I know you're enthused about keeping Cal LAFCO going, unless we accept the fact that we are a lobbying group. We are. I mean, because most of our time is spent on the ledge committee trying to figure out how to go educate a legislator. You're going around a process you created to protect the ag, provide regional rational growth, and to keep special districts, let them absorb into each other and let them adopt more. You know what I mean? When they're making all that around us, we need their support because they're active at that. And that's what happened really. And I'm a blunt person, right? That's why I probably quit. You can't just take the easy road all the time. You can't, oh, that's too hard. I gotta hire somebody to help me do this. Oh, that's too hard. I gotta hire somebody to do that. And that's what happened. And wheels started falling off. And then we're going down the road the wrong way. And I'm always one, hey, I'm on the wrong one way and you're flashing your lights. I turn around and go the other way. I couldn't get them turned around, folks. I mean, so for me, it's gonna take a heavy lift and a big change and probably for those other EOs and those other LAFCOs to come back, they're gonna have to prove that they're gonna change their ways. And they're key. I, and I mean, if you think about it, if 5 mutually minded LAFCOs or 6 have an issue and they would take it upon themselves to voluntarily go lobby and stop things and change things, it might be more effective than Cal LAFCO. So remember that on the 15th. I'll shut up.
Sir.
Now you got my opinion. It's shaky.
Building on, I think it's less shaky, but nonetheless, what I think, what Bill brings up is really valuable, and I think you all hear is that you have those big dominant Southern California LAFCOs. Guess which Northern California LAFCO they want to join their group?
Us,
Because we fit the category of
Exactly.
active.
we're active and we get things done.
They don't want to lose our input either. Unfortunately, it's just the nature of how it's set up. But having said that, I'm going to continue to work it. If you can come May 15th, please do. I think, and I will share with you, hopefully next meeting. If not, I'm not sure exactly when, because we have to get the policies finalized, but there are a lot of structural steps that are taking place right now. Bylaw changes that are going to happen in October at the membership meeting at the fall conference. I didn't want to get into all those because they're really detailed, but I can tell you there are core 10 policies that are fundamentally guided towards taking away some of the power of the existing 16-member board, adding regional officers to the voting pool, making sure a regional officer sits on the executive committee, really just bringing as much transparency as possible, because where we went wrong was when the members on their own without staff help started crafting things that just simply would not work. And that would not have happened if there would have been participation by their staff in the process. And that's going to change forever. That was my number one goal, was to make sure that I or Shannon coming after me or anybody else who comes after them is at that table. Because if you don't have practitioners guiding an organization that is representing all LAFCOs, where do you even begin to start building anything? You need to know from the people who actually do the work. So that's my pitch on that. I bring this as full circle back, because I know Bill, he was so passionate about this, and he and I were as angry could be on several occasions. But I think Shannon's got the will and the ability to stay in and try to make this work. And you know what? If it doesn't work for whatever reason, we always can revisit this. This is not like you have to make a decision you can never go back on. So anyhow, that's all I got for you on that matter.
One other thing that wasn't brought up or that you didn't make as plain as you could have probably is that we saw as a group, because of COVID and because of a fire, that we could lose our annual conference. And we were so dependent upon that annual conference, it wasn't logical to go forward that. That's why we had 2 years of raising the dues. And that's probably one of the most ugly things you've ever done, is try to figure out what the cutoff is per capita and which counties would pay the majority of the money and accept it. And that's how we lost one county. But that came about because you can't rely on conferences, because you never know. You know, Yosemite burned. Remember, we couldn't go there, and then we had COVID. That was the big adjustment, and that was difficult, but we worked through it. I think where we got off the rails is when I kept bringing it up, and that's what got me, you're the old bearded guy or something, and they're not listening. I'm going, we need to fix things. We got 4 core groups pretty upset, and they were just like, they don't matter. And I didn't get mad. I just got frustrated. So I'd rather go to RCRC and do something. Got you at CSAC, so
Yep.
covered there. Yeah.
So don't let any of this dissuade one or more of you from considering being on the board.
It's, you'll learn a
I'm not coming
lot
back to you,
quick.
I promise.
No, I'm not going back there. Well, I might. I heard that some of the people that quit might be worth going back. And I never said I told you so once. I said it several times.
Yes.
All right, anything else? You got any more questions? Any public comment on it? If not, we'll move on to executive correspondence. Do you have any correspondence? Huh?
First, the executive.
Okay, executive office report. Oh, because the overview was agendized. I got you. Okay, go ahead.
I'll run through this pretty quick.
Well, I should say, is there any public comment, anything not on the agenda? We can't take action on it, but you can get up and talk. I see no interest. No, okay, moving on. Executive officers report.
Just an update on the election. We obviously need a quorum of 19 ballots. We currently have 11 ballots in our possession, meaning that we will have to extend the voting period for an additional 30 days. For those of you who've been around a while, you know, this is not uncommon. It's
Mr. Brown, is there a way to lower that number some way? Okay.
You're talking about special district.
Yeah, I'm
election.
just trying to think if we could only get like 30% of them by. No,
No, it's
okay.
just a matter of getting them to put it on.
So just from my information, how many special districts do we have?
38.
And we need what percentage?
We need 50 plus 1.
A lot of cats to herd.
So we need.
You know, most of them are, you know, irrigation districts in your district, so.
Cemetery districts, those kind of things,
Well,
right?
they don't vote.
No, they don't.
They're all
They're
dead.
dead.
Yeah.
It's hard to come up with a rhyme or reason over the years of who does what, why, but the reality is it's.
And this is every 2 years we have to do this.
No, well, yes, because we do, yes.
2 years and this is to elect our special district folks.
Something that I will remind you that we do out of the kindness of our hearts, because they don't have an association capable of doing it themselves, but I don't want to even get into that, but it's probably better that we do it for some reason.
Yeah.
It's just, Crystal just has to be super nice to these people on the phone and encourage them, so, and she's always super nice. Yeah, so we'll keep working that. We are gonna extend it another 30 days, and hopefully that'll get us to our ballot count. And we'll
And we
get
have
us,
how many candidates that are running?
3 total running for the seats.
So
Agree, and Mr. Bradley.
we'll elect 2 and 1 alternate, correct?
You elect 1 regular member and 1 alternate.
Okay. So the terms are 4 years.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Okay, yeah, we'll just keep working it, and law allows for the sitting commissioner, whoever that person is, to stay in their seat until such time a replacement has been
Mhm.
identified. So,
So whose term is up? Okay.
And if we never get to that.
well, the only thing that would change that is if you had, for instance, well, I'll pick on Al since I've done that already today. Al gets to stay and sit even though his LAFCo term is technically up, because he still sits on the recreation board. If he were to lose his seat on his primary parent board,
And I'm going.
lost yours on the council, lost yours on, you couldn't serve it all, period.
Mhm.
But since he's still eligible to serve, he can continue past his term until such time he's replaced. But he is on the ballot, so.
Okay.
It's just a process, and we do it, and we will get there. I'm not gonna talk about the lease. We're still looking for a building. Sewer agencies, there was a planning staff met with the member districts just last week and 2 weeks ago. Yeah, last Monday, and had a good conversation about, this is the sewer districts in Oroville area, and had a good conversation about how they go about dealing with new developments and up to and including issuing building permits and the kind of things, the minutia that they need to see when they need to see improvement plans. It was a good conversation. I don't think we need to necessarily play a bigger role anymore. Those three districts and SCORE, they are more than capable of telling their story. And I hopefully they'll get listened to. So I think that's progress, and we'll take it. City of Chico, the only update, well, there's an update. Even though I said the meeting's put on hold, you might have noticed in this morning's paper, the Growth Committee in Chico met for its final meeting last night. Shannon and I were there. And essentially, there was no big bombshells to come out of that. No surprise. The two sides, the reality is I'll just put it in a nutshell. This is a sort of general planning 101 nutshell stuff is you go through a process of planning that's based on facts and science and rules and laws and policies. That's what your staff does. That's what we're required to do. But there's another part where people enter in with their philosophical view of what planning could be. If you believe in high density urban development because that's your philosophical view, that doesn't make it right or wrong. It just means that's so what happened is there was part of the committee that was like, there's a process. The process is you develop a general plan. That developed ends, you get zoning, and from zoning you get a map, and from a map you get a project, and then you build your project and you have a house and you have a happy family. There's a process, and if you follow the process, you should get the outcome, assuming that you've done everything legally correct. But if you do everything legally correct, but another group of people is opposed to your project, not because it's procedurally wrong or because it's a bad idea, they philosophically just don't agree with that type of growth. Those are two disparate things that you almost cannot bring together. And I think Shannon would agree, at the end of the day, the two poles didn't get any closer together. But what the fundamental takeaway was, I think, from their group, and they suggested this in their recommendation, was one, they believe their general plan as it currently is written, it's a good document, they should follow it. Valley's Edge was a unique situation, which there was no agreement on. Because obviously Valley's Edge followed the general plan, followed the sphere plan, followed all the right rules, that terminated by a referendum. So the referendum was not based necessarily on the facts of the project. It was based on the emotion of the project. And that's just the way it goes. So they agree that the general plan is good. And from our perspective, the other thing they said the value for LAFCo ears was they don't foresee a change in their sphere anytime soon, or even requesting one. They are of the mindset that between the current sphere they have with opportunity zones that have been identified, and there's three of these that are fairly large. Whether they get built, don't know. But outside of that and infill, they believe they can meet their projections for growth without having to come back to us with a sphere update. We'll see if that happens. They've got some time before they'll get to the point of even making that formal decision.
Are you telling us the function of that committee has come to closure then?
Correct. And they're gonna, on May 20th, the city council is going to receive the report and take testimony, and I don't know what outcomes will be at the city council meeting.
To pass
They're
that.
not being
that
asked to
conservation
do
plan.
anything, they're asked to.
Yeah, I've heard me say that before.
Do you,
That's
do you,
true.
and I should probably know this, but do you have a map of those opportunity zones? I think you called them for growth, where those are?
So one of them, it's called Doe Mill.
Okay.
That's now that's Valley's Edge.
Okay, out to the eastern side, right?
One called North Chico, which is the village core area of the North Chico specific plan, the county's plan.
Yeah,
We gave it back to them.
yeah.
No, we're not
You don't
gonna,
want to do it, but it's still an incorporated.
no,
area.
here's the reason. I mean, the county shouldn't do all the legwork, go through all the process. And then the city would annex it. It's their job.
Don't disagree.
Yeah,
But
so
that's one
we
of them.
changed, our philosophy changed at the county on that.
Interesting.
Well, think about what I'm saying. You know, you have all the public hearings, you make sure all the infrastructure, you do all the legwork. And you get it done and then the city annex it when it's done. So why should we do it as a county?
Totally understand.
So that's true, though. That the three
Got
areas.
that
are
train back on the rails.
Doe Mill, Valley's Edge, same thing. North Chico, Village Core, gate area where the baseball fields are right now.
Right, I want to ask you about that.
Yeah, and that's kind of been churning for a while. And this was just new last night. Pomona Avenue on South Chico, where Durham Dayton goes down.
Sure.
It's student town, basically. It's lots of apartments and whatnot, and it's ripe for development, but years ago, I don't know how long ago, some of you might remember, but the city wanted to annex a large area there for a subdivision, but it was right next to the hauling plant.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, they were dead set against it, and for good reason. And we weighed in, before it even came to us, we weighed in comments and said, from an agricultural perspective, we're doing everything we can to protect that hauler. Now, turns out on their own choices, they moved. And now that land is vacant. It's not
Yeah, they
vacant,
moved
but
on
it's no longer being operated.
They want it
by
developed.
them. Todd probably knows a lot more about this than I do. They moved to Glenn County, right?
Correct.
Much cheaper land, everything
Mhm.
to their benefit. We just lost a local hauler. So now the city wants to come back now because of that situation change and look at Pomona again and potentially annex that area in as well. The city's putting some effort into rebuilding the bridge and some road improvements and stuff. So most likely you will see that somewhere in the future without the hurdle of dealing with the hauler anymore. Still butts up against ag land, but take that as it
Mhm.
comes. And the other area, which was an opportunity area but was removed, was the Belmere area, northwest sort of Chico area. It's a mix of housing, mostly large lots, some rural, still some horses, and it's being encroached on by subdivisions. The city removed that from an opportunity zone several months ago to allow 2 residential subdivisions, R1 subdivisions, to go in. Just because they were ripe and ready and the opportunity zone wasn't. And there's not a lot of agreement in Belmere from anybody about what to do. So Belmere's been dropped as an opportunity zone. Now we'll probably just get developed piecemeal, and hopefully it'll get developed piecemeal in the city at R1 densities.
Not to extend our meeting any longer, it's gone a long time, but in that Southgate area, that's the area I represent as a supervisor, there's sewers going in there. Now, a lot of sewer planning, a lot of, I guess they're gonna tear up the roads and put sewer in there, even though it's an unincorporated area. Is that something we had to approve in order to extend the sewer, or is that in the sphere and the city can do whatever they want to in that sphere?
City. Go ahead.
The P18 trunk line project is happening now.
Yes.
And it will connect the sewer line from the River Road area
Correct?
to eastern, like to support the subdivisions out on the eastern area. Eventually, if Valley's Edge, if that were to happen,
Oh.
Stonegate,
Mhm.
Bruce Road area, it supports the subdivisions out on that area. So it's not to support any new development. It's always been part of the sewer master plan to relieve
Yeah.
sewer in the eastern part of the city.
Yeah, it's interesting because there is a piece of land, maybe 10 acres. I forget how much it's owned by the Chambers family right there.
Yeah.
Between Speedway and Entler. And one of the requirements that the county put on them was they had to put a trunk line, a sewer line down through the middle
Yeah.
of that, even though it's unincorporated. And
So-
I just, it's interesting, and they're that we be 1 acre lots. I'm not sure why we were required to do that, but that's just what we did at the county. Is that prime? Is that area prime for annexation? Will we ever see that in
Not
the near
according
future?
to the neighbors who live there.
Yeah. Maybe I should talk to you after the meeting. Yeah.
No,
Because-
I participate in coordination meetings between the City of Chico, Environmental Health, and ourselves. And everybody is on the same page that the P18 trunk line, it's a major trunk line. It's not
Right.
intended to serve the resident. You would not just tap into it.
Okay.
And everybody is clear on what the requirements are to connect to the sewer line. Right now, I would not say that it's prime for to connect and to support further development, but it's only a matter of time before those septic tanks start failing. All that development happened 25-ish years ago.
Or longer. Yeah.
And so that'll be a conversation that we are going to have to play a part in is, do we start allowing them connect to the sewer? Do we start putting it on the city's radar that maybe we start looking into incorporating it into the city? But I would not say that right now it's at that time. And like I said, the P18 trunk line is a pretty substantial to collect from one region to another region.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to, I'll talk to you guys at another time. I don't waste the committee's time on that. But I'm gonna get a ton of questions.
Sure.
When they start digging and,
Yeah,
what
what's
the
happening?
hell's going on here?
Yeah.
I'm already getting it because they're out there marking the
Yes,
areas
they
and
started last
surveying
night,
and
yeah.
things like that. So I'll talk to you guys afterwards. Thank you.
That's all I have on the growth committee issue. Project notes, county CSA program, actually, the board had heard from their public works director about that, and there's movement making, and we will have a role to play depending on how big or expansive that is. Valley's Edge is obviously still just sitting there waiting to see what's happened. Technically, it's dead because of the referendum, but you probably have read that there are options still existing for them, legal options that they're exploring. Town Paradise Project, there's nothing new. I already I'm gonna skip through the rest of it because there's nothing new that has happened since your last meeting. Gave you the update on LAFCo, the comments. Just real quickly on staff workshop, I already said this, but I'll bring it up again because I hope she'll do it. Shannon did a session called Ballots and Boundaries, Navigating the Ins and Outs of Protest Hearings. Very, very good, well received. Probably nothing done like it before at LAFCO, so I hope she'll take a chance to put that on an agenda and give that to you. Did one called Cracking the Code of Island Annexations, which was all about various LAFCOs around the state, how they're dealing with islands. And I can say, just as a takeaway from that one particular meeting, because it's kudos to this commission, is we did a lot of things, and we were very aggressive about how we went about getting rid of islands, especially in the city of Chico. And they always ask, how do you get all this done? And really, I always say the same thing. It's will. It's political will. If your commission wants to do it, the tools are available. My commission had always wanted to do it. You were always unanimous, well, barring one commissioner in the years past, unanimous about doing that. So I can go out and use all those tools very effectively because I know you have agreed that that's a good idea. A lot of LAFCO EOs don't have the benefit of what I would consider a very well-versed commission. And sometimes it's 3-4, 4-3. It just goes back and forth constantly. Those staff are never going to bring forth anything aggressive because they're lucky they can get to 4 votes on any one particular item. So I say that is that we've done this great program, and I'm really proud of all what we did with Chico and South Oroville and so forth. But it's political will. So I hope the commission just stays out there in the front on the proactive edge of using the tools and direct your staff to keep doing that, because that's how we're successful. The ones that aren't still waddling through 40 some islands, and even though the law exists, I can't explain to you why they're still stuck. It's just a lack of will. So that was the 2 things we did. Although other than that, was there anything else at the workshop, Shannon, that you wish to share, or Mr. Brown? It was really good, and it was my last workshop, so I won't go to any more of those. That's all I have for you on that item.
Correspondence,
There is no Excel correspondence.
administration,
Direction to me from you.
going to close session.
We're doing that.
I think I'm gonna jump out, and I'm having a hard time not coughing on everybody. So you guys would have to do it without me.
So we're gonna go over to the fireside room. We'll adjourn to the fireside room, and then we'll come back and report out.
And here's the vice chair.
Todd.
Taking over, Todd.
Hope you feel better, buddy. Take care of yourself.
I just need to go drink some more Bakewell.
Drink some whiskey.
No, that's tonight.
Care of
You're off,
yourself, well.
Mr. Bennett.
Mr.
I
Bet,
thought it was Mr. Betts. I thought it was, yeah.
oh, you got the most.
It was last time, yeah.
Okay, we are back from closed session, and there's no reportable action with regards to the closed session item. And is there anything else? Anybody have anything to bring up for the meeting? I recess the meeting.
Sure.
Adjourned.